So today I have a bit of a special upload for you. As you know, recently OpenAI released the O1 preview model along with O1 mini. And let me tell you that after a few weeks of using this model in my day-to-day workflows and leading endless discussions around what to use it for, I came to some interesting and unique conclusions what you actually want to be using this model for. And I collected all of that knowledge into a lecture that I presented to the AI Advantage community. This is one of 15 to 20 events that we actually run inside of the membership every single month. As you can see here in the schedule, this is the LLM Innovations format, but we also have the same thing for the Creative District, which is all about image and video generation, and the No-Code District, which is all about external applications that use AI for various workflows. Then we also have foundational events for beginners, panel discussions, and office hours, which are like group consultings. Now, as you might know, that is our paid membership, and usually all the lectures in there are behind the paid wall. But this one in particular, I really wanted to share with all of the subscribers on YouTube because I feel like it works by itself. A lot of the community content falls into a longer learning path that takes multiple hours to complete and to actually build a skill. But this event really talks about the basics of O1, where to use it, how to use it, and concrete examples of when it's superior to any other LLM out there. And that's why you're seeing it here on YouTube. So without further ado, let's get into this month's edition of LLM Innovations, the lecture series that I hold every single month inside of the AI Advantage community. I want to start by showing you why I was super excited to do all the research for this lecture. Or what got me so excited, because I found that one of the main tasks that I keep returning to with ChatGPT is actually better performed by O1. So without further ado, let me share my screen and let me just share you the result of what O1 can kind of do for you here. And I'm going to do it always in this format. I always have two conversations that I kind of prepared in advance. One of them is in 4.0. Let's keep that on the left side. And one of them is in O1. Let's keep that on the right side. The task that I'm referring to, there's some other examples. I have those. We're going to talk about real world use cases. That's really the main focus of these presentations. But the task that I'm referring to is rewriting text. It's state of the art at rewriting. Let me just back up for a second and tell you that already with something simple like this, right? Just make it better. Now, sure, you could be more precise with that, but I kept it quite generic here. This O1, concretely O1 mini result, I always prefer to O1 preview and GPT-4o and Sonnet and anything else on the market. It's actually crazy how consistently good it is. I'll point out the nuances that make it better here in a second, but let me just tell you about my general workflow with writing these days. It always starts with original thought. I do not begin inside of the AI. We talked about this before, but we're just at a point in time. If you let AI do all the writing for you, it's not going to be good enough. Certainly not by my quality standards, but I think society in general just agrees that, AI written text standalone is just, if you're using it in a professional environment, probably not good enough. So I always start with my own writing, even if it's super simplistic, even if it's just a brain dump and look, don't worry, this is not going to be some like writing with AI masterclass. I just want to outline the process I usually do. Even if it's just this brain dump or a bullet point list, or I just throw down all the ideas that I have, I take those, then I go to Sonnet 3.5. I use a very simplistic prompt there to rewrite it. Maybe I specify a little bit of myself. Sometimes I give my custom instructions, but usually I just tell, make this flow well. Like that's a really good universal prompt that just works. And then Sonnet does that. Then I take that, maybe I make a slight edits, mostly not. I bring it into ChatGPT and then I let ChatGPT be the editor. This is the flow that I used a week ago. And then what I do is I take the result from Sonnet and I take the edited result from ChatGPT and I kind of play a little puzzle game where I just piece it together in a way that works for me. And that's how I do my writing these days. Now, the first draft would have already been usable usually. Even if I dump it down, like I got, with all the content creation, I have quite some experience with, formalizing my thoughts. So the first draft is not bad already that I bring into Sonnet. That improves the flow, makes it better every time. And then I bring it into ChatGPT to edit. Now I bring it into O1 to edit, okay? So we're gonna go step by step through this, but I just wanted to show you this one example, why I will bring it into O1 mini every single time from here on out. No discussions. So the reason I will do that is the following. Okay, look, this example kind of shows, well, this is going to be worth spending like 45 minutes of your time here with me on, because it's just better. Simple prompt, okay? Make this better, make this better. And then if you're not familiar, this is the first question in our FAQ on the community sales page. This is the first question. I believe it's something like, why should I subscribe to a community if I can learn about AI for free online? It's one of the main points raised by people, and I think it's a fantastic point, but I think we also have a fantastic answer. And the answer so far has been something along these lines, okay? So bear with me for a second here. Let's qualitatively review this. So the answer that we usually give is learning about AI for free is possible, but comes with the challenge of every piece of content being isolated information that ends once the video/article is over, and the lack of thoughtful discussion surrounding all aspects of AI. Okay, so, every piece of content, every YouTube video stands by itself, and it doesn't allow you for like a 9-hour-long learning experience like we offer with the learning paths, for example, right? So that's the first point. For example, the AI Advantage Community YouTube channel does provide quality content, and then it goes into these points. Now, you can have a look at this. I don't want to waste your time with like all the details here. I really want to focus on the first paragraph. The way this was written originally, the way I wrote this originally, or like me and the team in collaboration wrote this, learning about AI for free is possible, but comes with the challenge of every piece of content being isolated information that ends once the video is over. And then there's a second point here. Now, this is the main difference between 4.0 and 0.1. You can see it right here in the very first paragraph, okay? Again, identical prompt. This one is 0.1 mini. This one is 4.0. I believe you can see it here. Yeah, 4.0, 0.1 mini, right? Okay. So what's the difference? First of all, it's more concise. Okay, fair enough. That doesn't mean a lot by itself. But then, check this out. Learning about AI for free is definitely possible, but it often comes with the challenge of fragmented content. Each video or article stands alone, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So I want you to notice this, okay? Comes with the challenge of fragmented content. It's rewriting it, right? It's editing it. It's making it better. Why does it say challenge of fragmented content here? And over here, learning AI is entirely possible, but it often presents challenges. Why does this? Any guesses in chat? Why this would say challenge, singular, and this says challenges? And this is not an anomaly. If you look at across all the generations in 4.0, challenge, singular, this was my long conversation, but it's the same thing. Challenge, singular, so it's consistent, right? And then if I look across all 0.1 mini and 0.1 preview generations, challenges. You can look at more, but trust me on this. Challenges every single time from the same prompt. It always points out that there's challenges. See that? So I'll give you the resolution here. The point is that I kind of pointed out, I pointed out multiple challenges here. And actually, by learning AI just off the internet, it's not going to be just one challenge, right? That's a complex problem. The internet is a wide place. We're talking about human education. Like, there's going to be more than one challenge, right? Maybe, I should have come up with that when writing this original copy, but I didn't. And 4.0 also didn't. Because what 4.0 is doing, it's just generating token by token. It's going ahead, it creates this, then it creates this, then it creates this, then it creates this, and so on until it arrives here. And then it, looks at all the context it has, and it says, okay, I need to rewrite this, comes with the challenge. Okay, let's rewrite it, but the main challenge, right? It does not consider the bigger picture. And it certainly doesn't iterate and think multiple times over the bigger picture. Whereas 0.1 and 0.1 mini and 0.1 preview certainly do think about it. As you can see, this is not many steps. This one took a few seconds. I think using 0.1 preview takes longer because it's slower. This took multiple steps, but every single time, as you could see, across all the 6 generations, this is a really important point, it considered the fact that there's actually multiple challenges. And this is a small example. I could nitpick a few other points. I could show you other examples that we'll do at the end of the lecture here. But the point is this. 4.0 and all other language models, this is the main difference. They generate token by token, aka word by word. This considers the full text and then thinks about it. It revises the entire passage. It navigates all AI educational challenges, right? It explores the scattered and brief nature of free AI content, right? It explores it. It thinks about it. It's like a person sitting back in the armchair and being like, all right, so, before I rewrite this, like experienced writer, he wouldn't just go ahead and like rewrite it word by word, but he would think about it like, okay, what's the, nature of AI education? What's the nature of education? How do people learn? Right? There's going to be more than one challenge. Even though the original offer said there's one challenge, and then later on goes on to list another one, there's multiple. And that's what's happening here. That's really the core at the essence of O1. And that's why it's better at rewriting. It doesn't just consider the full context better. It also kind of mulls it over and does all these extra steps to come up with the best copy possible. And that's why I don't think I'll ever be using 4.0 for rewriting or Sonnet or anything else, because I want this. I want, and arguably somebody could come in here and be like, Igor, but that's one word. Well, we could spend another hour here picking this apart. I think, you could do that. I think this is superior copy to this. And how much better is it? Well, that's kind of hard to quantify. But it might mean the difference between somebody joining or not joining, and it might mean the difference between it actually influencing their life in a meaningful way. Depending on what you do with your copy, it could literally change lives. And I certainly, I'm perfectionistic in certain ways, but I just have high quality standards. And I really, really value if something is better. And this is, to me, clearly better, and not just once, but consistently, because it thinks, okay? So that is sort of my first and overarching point. Keep that in mind as we go for everything. This thinking process, there's value to it that goes deep, but not for everything, okay? I'm highlighting this because this is a thing I do all the time. I use AI to edit all the time. Again, I write and then I rewrite with AI. ChatGPT is my favorite editor. Now, O1 Mini is my best editor. Why is O1 Mini better than O1 Preview? Slightly. I don't know. It's just what I found from my testing, and also a lot of people online seem to share this opinion. Larry asking a question, Igor, do you have any custom instructions on for 4.0? No, I don't. This is just a raw output. I don't. So let's get into the little presentation I prepared here. Also, all the visuals in today's presentation, courtesy of Microsoft Copilot. They're not great, but they're okay. It was super efficient to generate it with it. As I said, I'm working on my Copilot skills, but either way, what you'll see today, it's all Copilot generated. So there you go. Let me share my screen. All right. So yeah, I think what we started there with, that use case, it really illustrates it so well. It just thinks before it continues. And that's the overarching story here, okay? So I prepared that little presentation that kind of summarizes things, gives you a few extra tools, a few ways to think about it. But then my goal today is going to be, one, to actually fit it within the hour, because a lot of people, they scheduled for this hour. And two, to end this in an open-ended manner that might inspire further conversation within the community. As you'll see in the end, I kind of raise a problem that you guys can grapple with on your own. But let us begin here. So what's the plan here? What are we going to do throughout the next 30 to 40 minutes? First of all, I'm going to give you a super quick overview just to catch everybody up. Then we're going to talk about limitations. Important topic, right? So many limitations with AI. In the course, we dedicate a chapter to it. We talk about these all the time. You need to be cognizant of these to get the most out of these models. Then we're going to talk about usage strategies. So, a few tips and tricks, a few platforms that I would recommend. There's one that allows file uploads today with O1 already. Also, it should be noted, this lecture is dated with October 1st, 2024. So, at a later point in time, some of these things might change. As of today, this is all up to date. AI moves fast though. And then we're going to talk about very, very rough prompting guidelines that I kind of came up with myself and in conversations with others. And then last but not least, we're going to talk real world applications. And then, we could spend hours on that because there's a lot to discuss there, but there's some good ones. So let's get into the overview. Okay, so, very simple. This is a brand new family of models. It's not just a new model. It's a whole new clothing line, so to say, by OpenAI. It's a whole new brand, however you want to kind of, whatever you want to compare this to. But yeah, these reasoning, these things step-by-step chain of thought type of models, they're a new line. And they're titled O1 and then probably consecutively O2, etc. They're models that engage in thought before responding. So I think I illustrated this quite well on the initial example. They think over the entire process. They think about the beginning, middle, and the end. They do additional prompts, additional steps before they even start rewriting, and use all of that in their context to get you better responses. Not always needed. The downside obviously is, it's way, way slower. Some of these generations take 40 seconds, whereas with 4.0 it might take 2. Okay, the variety different models that we have today are O1 Preview, O1 Mini, the faster and cheaper alternative, and then the upcoming O1 that we should get throughout, I don't know, maybe October, maybe later, who really knows. It employs chain of thought reasoning. We talked about this in previous prompt engineering lectures where we discussed various papers. Basically, it's this concept of think step by step, where it basically prompts itself a few times before it does the final prompt. That's kind of the summary. Welcome on board, Gerhard. Good to have you here. And then it's trained on multilingual data sets. And this is kind of an interesting reference point that we talked about in the office hours. Not sure this is too useful, but this came up in a conversation recently with also community member Rastislav Dujava, and he kind of pointed out that, and I noticed this, often in the thinking process, it like thinks in Mandarin or in Hindi or in just foreign languages, and you're like, why would it do that? So we had a discussion about this, and he also prompted GPT in various ways, and he kind of came up with this theory that seems to be true, that behind the O1 model, it's not just English data sets that do this reasoning, because a certain type of reasoning and certain type of thinking is better done in other languages. Let me just, super small personal, tangent here. I grew up trilingually in like a very unusual setup in my childhood, and certain languages, just like everybody who's at least bilingual will know that other languages, they just hide these specific cultural like gems and expressions and idioms that you just cannot translate. It's very hard, and they're just unique to the language. And also, if you kind of, for example, this is also super tangential, but if you look at the history of psychotherapy, it seems to be really heavily weighted towards German-speaking languages, right? With a lot of the grades coming from Switzerland and Austria, and there's something about the German language that maybe it's in the culture, but I think a lot of it is also embedded in the language that just goes deeper than what you could express in other languages. Now, certainly there's a lot to that discussion, and we could discuss that forever. I just want to point out that in my experience, and also seems like in OpenAI's testing and development, using various languages and knowledge from various languages and writing from various languages seems to yield superior results when it comes to reasoning than purely going for English-only data sets. Or maybe it's just a limited nature that, hey, there's a lot of English data, but if you include other data sets in other languages, it just performs better. Whatever, tangent over. I just kind of wanted to point that out. And if you look at the reasoning steps, sometimes, especially in the beginning, it way more often went into other languages, and just the interesting kind of side point there. All right, so what are the current limitations really quickly? Inside of ChatGPT, 50 messages per week for O1 Preview and 50 per day for O1 Mini. Quite simple. You do need the premium subscription, Teams or Plus or Enterprise or Education. Those are the four to access it. The knowledge cutoff is in October 2023. The full feature set is expected at release with all the tools of the O1. Marcus, yesterday in the office hour, actually surfaced a little screenshot from the OpenAI forum where one of the OpenAI employees actually confirmed that once OpenAI's O1, the full model, not the preview, not the mini, when O1 is releasing, it will come with all the features. What are the features? I relisted them here for you on the right side. They're memory and custom instructions, their data analysis, their file uploads, web browsing, they're the GPT integration and usage, they're the vision capabilities, and they're the advanced voice mode. I'm very excited for this. And I really think that giving all these tools to a model that can go that much further, giving it a bit more context and autonomy is going to be a major step forward, a bigger step forward than the switch from like 4 to 4.0, for example. A bigger step forward than the addition of any single one of these tools. I think it's going to be a major jump, and it should be very interesting here within the community as that happens. But I don't usually talk about the rumor mill too much. We spent time on cold, hard, practical workflows, but some of you might know Mr. Strawberry Man here from Twitter, the hype master behind this O1 release, and before it was nicknamed, Project Strawberry. Now he's back at it, tweeting again. I wanted to feature this one tweet here because I do agree with this point. The jump from O1 Preview to O1 is similar to the jump we saw from GPT-2 to to 4. You'll be in a state of shock for months. Now, okay, that might be a little bit overhyped there at the end, but then who knows at the end of the day? I think adding all of these functionalities to a model that does perform better is going to be incredible. You're going to be able to upload, you're going to be able to upload all of your personal context. You're going to be able to give it screenshots of your website. You're going to be able to tell it, make this better, and give it a random screenshot, and it's just going to do its thing. That's quite incredible. And when the quality of doing that is going to be, 20, 30% better than what we got with 4.0, well, that's a huge win, because let's be real, the quality of 4.0 very often in so many use cases that we look at here on this channel and community, all those use cases, they're like slightly below the threshold of where they become like incredibly amazing and you want to use them. Often they're just like, this is really good, but it's not quite there, right? That's kind of the feeling as I would describe it in so many cases. If we get a 20, 30% boost, and if this holds true, then I think we're gonna be at a very interesting point in time in generative AI, because yeah, as I said, I think a bulk of the use cases that we explore and prompt for, they're just below this threshold of being useful, and just this little boost in ability and in quality might just tip it over. And then, I think even more mass adoption would be the logical consequence of that. And then, everybody, in this room will be not just one, but multiple steps ahead, because we're dealing with all this stuff already, and then that's good. So if you use it through the API, right now, it's only available to users that are tier 4 above. What does tier 4 mean? Well, this is a screenshot of the OpenAI website. You can see if you spend $250 or more in the API, then you have it. I believe this is throughout the last month. Certainly tier 5 was. So you had to spend $1,000 or more in the last 30 days, and then you had 01 on release. Right now, they put it down to tier 4. If you don't use the API a lot, then you're not going to have it. That's kind of the gist of it. Okay, and these are kind of the final numbers. You can check this out if you want. That's the pricing. It's the most expensive model OpenAI has. It's one of the most expensive models available. It's pretty much only Opus is a bit more expensive. It's really interesting to check out this little calculator over here. I'm just gonna head on over and show you the website here. But this is a nifty little tool that we've also been using in yesterday's office hours, not sponsored or anything. It's just a cool little tool, and that's completely freely available. And you can go in here and say something like, okay, if I have 800 tokens of input, which is like pretty common, and it outputs 500 tokens, and I was looking at a project where I hook up a form and to my YouTube audience recommend various free resources that we have. Usually, my estimation would be maybe we're gonna require 8,000, maybe 10,000 API calls for that. So I can put that in there. The input tokens would actually be a lot, because the prompts that I crafted there, they include a lot of context and multi-shot examples. So it would be something like this. Output tokens would be something like this, would be my estimation. And then here I can quickly check how much it would cost with the various models. If you check it out, 01 preview right here, this little fun project would cost me $3,300 in API costs. Not so great. If I go with the mini, it's just $670, way better. If I go with 4.0 mini, it's $33. Ha, incredible. And actually the new king in this category is Gemini 1.5 Flash, as updated last week, $3.36. This is how cheaply you can actually generate 10,000 custom emails with a 20,000 token input, which is a lot, as you know. So this is an incredible price. Is the quality good enough for writing emails? Probably not. My preference here qualitatively would be Sonnet, coming in at a juicy $690. So just a good calculator, just a good tool to bookmark. The presentation and all the links will be in the event recording as per usual, so no worries about that. I just wanted to show you this, thought this was useful. Okay, back to business. Let's get to the interesting part here. Okay, let me skip over these. We were right here. So, the interesting part. How do you use this? How do we get more out of this? What have I found? What have I and the team found so far? Well, first of all, you can use it via ChatGPT Plus. This is kind of the traditional way. You're only going to have 50 messages per week. So very quickly, I ran into that limit, especially when I was testing certain things and rerunning 01 3 times, right? Like test one prompt 3 times, another prompt 3 times, another, and all of a sudden you're like, you're done for the week. Not for the day, for the week, right? 01 preview. Luckily for things like rewriting and things that are not related to the STEM fields, Mini is actually better. There you have 50 per day, but that's the initial way. Secondly, if you're level 4 or higher, which most people are probably not, then you can access it through the API and use the playground with it as per usual. But here's my tip. If you want to go beyond this, if you hit this limit and you want to go further, Poe is your friend. I tested various tools. Multiple community members actually recommended various tools. I know various people are using a lot of these new platforms that have popped up. Platforms that allow you to basically you pay a monthly subscription and then you get and they do the API calls for you and you get like a chat interface. There's many of these, but the one that I found to be actually the best with O1, and I say the best carefully because that's quite a strong term, but I think it's objectively the best, is Poe. Wait, I have to pull up Poe. Where did I place my Poe? I'm gonna reopen Poe like so. All right, why is Poe the best? It's the only one that has working file upload, okay? And also like voice recording, but the file upload is the main thing. You can actually upload PDFs to this and it works with it. Many other of these platforms that I've tested offer file upload, but then with O1 concretely, with O1 Preview, it just doesn't work because it's costly, right? Like if you upload something, they have to vectorize it, they have to store that, they have to put all those tokens into the context window and then also pay for it all. So they'd rather disable it. O1 Preview on Poe actually works. I could add a file here, run a prompt here. It will work. This does require subscription. I believe it's $25, $26 a month or something. But I am not entirely positive how many. Okay, there you go. You have 1 million tokens per month. One message of O1 is 10,000. So here you're getting twice the messages as in ChatGPT. I suppose if you're maxing it out on a weekly basis, you're actually getting half, right? Because in ChatGPT you would get 50 times 4, 200 messages. Here you get 100 messages in total. So, but you get them right away and you can use them right away. So if you're kind of stuck, I would recommend this. I know Dirk also saying here specializes in that some time ago. And I know also Dirk is a big fan of Poe in general because it allows you to, as so many people in the community are, because it allows you to use all of these various language models with some more advanced features. And fun fact, and I'll just kind of throw that in before we move on. The creator of Poe, the CEO of Poe, is also the creator of Quora, that you might be familiar with, a big online forum for answering questions. And I believe his name is D'Angelo Quora. What is his full name? Adam D'Angelo. Yes. And Adam D'Angelo here, if you didn't know, also anybody who has been following the OpenAI drama will know that Adam D'Angelo was and also still is on the board of OpenAI. So as you can see here. So, fun fact, this popular chatbot platform that ships features right before OpenAI regularly, okay? This is not the first time. They have these additional features always before OpenAI, happens to sit on the board of OpenAI. Now, my little conspiracy theory on when I put my little tinfoil hat on here would be that they actually use this as a testing ground before they ship it into ChatGPT. And this has been the case multiple times. Now, I don't know, just kind of wanted to point you towards that. Poe, great platform. You can use all of these different chatbots. And now let's move on if my Mac allows me to. Yes, it does. Thank you, Mac. Okay, so let's get back to a little presentation here. Poe might be the way to go if you want to go beyond the limits. There's a way to pay for more tokens, even if you don't have the API access. All right, so few prompting guidelines, and then let's get into practical use cases, shall we? So these are very rough, okay? Like this is definitely not like, hey, this is not law. But first things first, the one thing that is clear and that is law actually is what OpenAI recommended on release. Don't tell it to think step by step. The entire thing is trained and fine-tuned for step-by-step thinking. If you tell it that, you're just going to make it worse. Secondly, as with all prompting, markdown formatting and clear delimiters really help. So if you use certain formatting conventions that we talked about many times in the community, especially in the advanced prompt engineering learning path. We go into how to structure your prompts, how to create bullet points, sub-bullet points, how to use H1, H2, H3 headings for the various parts of your prompts. It still works best because it's the internet. It's the internet way of communicating hierarchy. That's what it comes down to, and that just helps. And my last point here is it favors short to medium length context rather than long context prompts. Matter of fact, if you give it super long prompts with 5 short examples, it often just completely disregards them because in the thinking process, it kind of takes on a life of its own, which is kind of creepy, to be honest. You know, it rethinks your input and is like, okay, human, thank you for those instructions, but you know what? Like, prompt number 7 suggested that we should do it differently, so I'll just go with that. And all of a sudden, it just disregards all your initial instructions and does its own thing. Yeah. So that's why longer instructions are not recommended, but they certainly work. I feel like from what I've seen on the online discussions, people have condemned it. Like, oh, one doesn't work with long instructions anymore. Prompt engineering is dead. I think a lot of that is actually just a theatrics, or like just is there to engage people and to enrage people. Like, oh my God, now I've, like, oh, all my prompts are going to be useless or something. It's just there to elicit the emotional response. It's not actually really factual. I have some examples here that we'll go into. Next slide is basically like use cases, and we'll go one by one and look at some. But I have some examples where I gave it some of our most complex prompts that we teach within the community and the courses, and it performed really well on them. In some cases, it just kind of improved it in a way where it thought it would be even better and just went off that and then disregarded kind of the templates that we gave it in the 5-shot prompts and all the detailed instructions. But it certainly works with long prompts. I would never would I state, like, not a single one of the complex prompts that I tried, like, didn't work. They all worked. They maybe didn't work exactly as they would in 4.0. It came up with its own ideas of how to interpret all that, but it's aware of all the instructions. It's very similar, if not identical, language model in the background. It's the outputs are similar to 4.0, right? It just does this extra thinking in between. So I wouldn't say long prompts don't work, but I will say that it works exceptionally well with short prompts, even if you just give it something like, but not too short, right? So if I just told it, and my other examples, remember how I told it, improve this text, that would be short by itself, but I give it a lot of context with the text, right? Then I give it the text and all of a sudden it's like a medium-sized prompt. Because like there's like 2-3 paragraphs of text. So and that's what I found to work best. If you just tell it like, hey, I want to create a business plan, good luck. Like that doesn't work well. Even if for my company AI Advantage, that doesn't work so well. It works way better if you kind of like go towards this short to medium area where you tell it about the business plan, but then you also tell it about the company and you tell it about your goal with the business, and then you let it do its thing. So don't keep it too short, right? Remember, like when last year we covered some of these auto GPT, and baby AGIs and these different frameworks that kind of popped up, these first agentic frameworks that were publicly available. And there the prompting was really like just state the goal and like hands off and let it do its thing. That's not the case here. It actually works better if you tell it the goal, but then also flesh the context out a little bit, Add that extra sentence, those extra 2 sentences, the target audience, flesh out the goal a little bit. That's just, just my personal take. Come up with your own ideas. I'll be sharing things as I learn them, but this is what seems to work best for me and all the other people that I've consulted this with. By the way, this was such a fun journey over the last 2 weeks. Sorry for anybody who I harassed with the question of like, and what are you using O1 for? Every team meeting, every office hours, I kind of brought this up. Got a lot of interesting answers, and this presentation is sort of the culmination of that. But yeah, it's been fun. I really enjoy doing these innovations events once a month. We get to kind of like dive deep into a specific topic. And the topic that we're diving deep into today is OpenAI O1 real-world applications. That's what we're here for. We arrived. We have about 15 minutes left, and what we're going to do in those 15 minutes is I'm going to show you various prompts that I ran through both 4.0 and O1 and O1 mini. And then I'm going to kind of comment on the results and on why you would want to consider some of these and why this is probably the best model for the things that are listed on screen right now. So let's just briefly go over them and then get into the concrete examples. I don't have concrete examples for every single one of them because We don't have time for all that, but for multiple here, I do. So first of all, superior for content editing. This is the example that I showed off right off the bat. That was, where you give it a text and you just want it to rewrite. You're not using it for creative writing. You're using it for editing. Now, I did include creative writing here too, as you can see, bullet point number 3, but especially storytelling. This is one that has been raised by Daniel Pierce, team member. He said it's really good at storytelling, and I can confirm. And we had a little conversation about this, and it's the same idea of it kind of abstracts away from your requirement of the story, and it thinks about, okay, what makes a good story? How should we structure it? What other elements could we include in the story to improve it? If it does all that, it's going to craft a better story for you. It's going to consider the beginning, the middle, and the end while writing the beginning, rather than just going token by token and writing your story, right? Do you see the pattern here? Every time there's a larger unit that you need to respect before you start generating every single token, every single word. That's where this performs better. Stories are one example. Translation tasks or content editing, another example. Bullet point number 2 here, right? If you're translating a phrase, well, it's one thing to translate a word, but especially if you're translating some of these more peculiar phrases, like I tried it on a lot of German phrases. Let me tell you, German has a lot of weird phrases that don't make any sense whatsoever if you just translate them word by word, but they're really effective in the context of the language, and you kind of have to, you have to extract the meaning of the phrase and then maybe come up with a whole new approach to communicate that in English. This is something that 4.0 can't really do well because it just looks at the word. It's like, okay, first word, what does this translate to? Okay, and it just generates that. Sure, it considers all the context, but there's just these thinking steps. They add a layer of translation quality that you cannot get from Google Translator. You cannot get it from other LLMs. You cannot get it from 4.0. When it comes to translation, I would even go as far as saying this is probably the best translator in the world that I've seen, certainly between German and English, which I tested it on extensively, and then also between Slovak and English, which is the other language I speak. It's also better than anything else I've seen. So, to be discussed, but in my opinion, it's the best translator we ever got. Sure, you want to translate a phrase, and waiting 30 seconds in some cases might not be ideal, but if you want the highest quality, that's the price you pay right now. Okay, so next up, we have strategic planning and problem solving and process optimization code review. Okay, so let's look at some examples here, I would say. But as you can see, all of these, strategic planning and problem solving or business planning, for example, this is exactly the type of use case where the entire business plan should be considered more in depth, and a certain level of original thought would probably be beneficial when you're trying to create a business plan, rather than just going word by word and coming up with, depending on the last sentence, let's write the next one. And sure, I don't want to understate the fact that 4.0 also considers the entire context and uses that in predicting the next token, but it just goes further if it takes this step-by-step thinking, step-by-step reasoning approach. And then process optimization is an interesting one too, where, if you have a SOP and you want to improve that SOP, it's probably good to kind of consider the entire SOP, every single step of it from beginning to end, and to maybe form some original thoughts about what could improve the SOP rather than just going step by step and trying to make the step better. You want to make the whole better. That's why this works better. Last but not least, code review. This is one that is up for debate. I think this one is up for debate the most out of this entire list. But essentially, people say that for code generation, for code generation, I still use Sonnet 3.5. I think it's the best in terms of code generation. Sometimes 01 preview is really excellent too, though. It has longer output. So if you want to generate longer applications in one shot, then probably 01 preview is what you want to go there towards. But code review, again, just like content editing, where you're trying to make sense of it, form original ideas, and then apply those, that's where it shines. Okay, so let's look at some practical examples and some comparisons here, shall we? Okay, so let's see. I have various dual tabs set up here, and I kind of want to review this one by one. Okay, this is going to be my last example, so let's keep that. Let's keep that for the end. Yeah, business planning, shall we? This is an interesting one. Okay, we looked at the rewriting example right in the beginning. So I think I've made my point there. It's just better at rewriting. Just no discussions there. Let's look at some others though. There you go. That's cleaner. So this one is about this basic prompt, simple prompt, right? I would call this a small context prompt, but it has enough in there, right? I fleshed out what the AI advantage means a little bit, and I gave it a lot of freedom in formulating this. So I ran it once in 4.0 and once in 0.1 preview. Let me take a sip of water here before we analyze this and kind of compare some of the results and some of the points here. All right. So here, this generation has been done by 0.1 mini. As you can see, a first one is 0.1 and then 0.1 mini and 0.1 mini. I would say, generally speaking, when it comes to use cases that are not in the sciences, that are not physics, that are not math problems, 0.1 mini is superior, right? A lot of the OpenAI blog posts, and as you can see also in this presentation, I didn't really focus on like, ooh, it's so good in math, because I just know that a bulk of the audience and the viewership here doesn't tackle math problems in their day-to-day. Okay, it's better at physics PhD problems. Well, that's amazing. I don't remember the last time I encountered the physics PhD problem in my everyday routine. And if you do, then fantastic. 0.1 preview is your friend. But for some of these other things that are non-science related, I actually consistently find 0.1 mini to be better, which is interesting because you have more messages, it's faster. It's just a win. Like, this is sort of, it's better. So why would it be better in this case? Well, let's have a subjective and qualitative look at what it produces here. I heard saying if you have little kids, you constantly have physics problems. Yeah, fair enough. See, when you're doing, that would be a great real world scenario there. Yeah. All right, so let's have a look at this. So, you know, it generated more with 0.1 mini here. So as you can see, first things first. No, actually here it has 10 points. I thought it generated more. Yeah, here in the second shot, it generated 15 of them, and then it was slightly different formatting. So as you can see, there is a lot of variance amongst the generations. This one looks a lot like the 4.0 generation. This one, if I scroll down and go to example number 3, this one looks almost identical, right? Just the points are shuffled in a different order. You have 3 sub-bullet points here, 2 sub-bullet points here. It's very similar. It's not night and day at all. But I would actually say that this goes a little more in depth. First of all, and again, this is slight, right? And it's subjective, but I would just like to highlight that. Let's take let's take 1 point and compare it. Okay, so we're creating a business plan for the Advantage, a generative AI educational brand teaching practical LLM usage. So how about this? What about the first point? What about the ordering of these? I feel like that sort of matters. If I generate a business plan, it kind of matters what I start with, especially if I'm using this to kind of generate new ideas. I want the most important points to be first. I would argue that 4.0 was absolutely terrible at this. It kind of, every time you regenerate, it's going to shuffle it differently, right? Like now it's develop tailored learning paths. Now it's creates specialized niche programs. If I regenerate it again, it will be something different again. Let's have a look. But I would argue that, yeah, I think the curriculum and content development is actually the most important part. And look, it gives you 4 sub-points here instead of, again, just 2. So just from that, without even reading, I would say, yes, more detail and actually prioritizing correctly is a win and is a better response, right? So that's why I would prefer 0.1 mini here over 4.0. What did it say? Differentiation and specialization. Okay. Build interactive real-world AI projects. I mean, that's cute. That's good. But isn't it more important for the curriculum to be relevant to the various industries? I think it is, right? It wants to reflect the latest advancements in AI and LLM technologies. And then you want to incorporate real-world applications and case studies to ensure practical relevance. And then it gives you different strategies to do that. I think that's more important than like designing some exotic interactive path. Again, this is just subjective. You can make up your own mind. This is just my take on this, but I do prefer this. And if you look at it, it's consistently better. It's not just this one time, right? Again, it goes through curriculum first because it kind of makes up its mind as what is better. So whenever it comes to planning, strategizing, I do prefer this. Maybe let's look at another point. How about student success? Let's see if it brings up this point. Yeah, focus on student success and support. Okay, so we can compare these 2 points, right? So let's have a look. AI-powered feedback. Use AI to provide personalized feedback on student projects and quizzes. Really, that's your first take? 4.0? Like, I should be using 4a, not a human touch to give the people feedback? All right, okay, whatever. Note taken. What about this? Mentorship programs. Establish mentorship opportunities where experienced professional guide students through their learning journey, providing personalized advice and support. This is like 10 times better advice, right? If you paid a consultant, then he will tell you, hey, you should use AI to give all your students feedback. And the other one would be like, hey, what about like starting a mentorship program? Like, this is just better advice. Again, subjective, but that's what I'm doing here, just sharing my opinion, right? Okay, career support. What about that? Let's give it another chance. 4.0, what you got here? Offer job placement services, resume building workshops, and AI project portfolios. Okay, partner with companies hiring AI talent that helps students connect with them post-graduation. Okay, let's see. This is similar, resume building and job placement. This is quite similar to help students transition into AI roles. This is very similar. So, I would say no criticism here. Kind of came up with the same thing. Live Q&A support. Provide real-time support via live Q&A sessions or office hours where students can engage directly with instructors. Luckily we do this. And let's see what it said here. Create forums, discussion groups, and alumni networks to foster a sense of community, enabling peer support and networking opportunities. This is sort of similar, but higher level. Again, I would say this is a tie here. And then I have an extra point here, which is nice. Implement regular feedback loops to understand student needs. Good point. I mean, that's how you achieve success. You try things, the ones that work you keep, and then you have a feedback loop in place. I think this is great advice. There was no fourth point here, fair enough. I would say especially on the first one, this is a clear win qualitatively for me for 01 Mini. So I don't know, what did we find? It prioritizes the most important points at the top. It actually, within the sub points, it raises issues that are more important consistently. If you look at the whole thing, you'll find that this is pretty consistent across all the generations. And 01 Mini is actually even better than 01 Preview, because if we look at 01 Preview, let's maybe look at the strategic partnerships point and then move on to the next use case here. Yeah, there you go. So look at that. This only gives us, 2 points. That's fair enough. Here there's 3. Academic collaborations and industry alliances. This tells us educational partnerships. This is kind of the same point, right? Partner with universities and research institutions, co-develop courses and gain academic endorsement into their curriculum. And here it tells me, comparable. So maybe this resonates a little more with me than this does, but okay. What else? Industry, collaborate with tech companies for guest lectures, internships, and job placements for students. Develop corporate programs that train. Here I just feel like it doesn't quite understand what we're doing. We don't want to be developing courses for others. We develop courses for ourselves. We don't want to develop corporate programs or in-house, or like we're offline. This just gets it, I would say. But again, not a landslide win. I would just say it's just slightly better. But I think overall it's just, I guess we could also now, in the interest of time, we won't, but we could also compare 01 Mini to this. Again, Mini, for these cases where it's more about strategizing and planning and writing and rewriting, is just better. When it comes to maths, physics, sciences, sure, Preview is the one to go with, but my default is sort of Mini these days. Okay, good. So that's our little comparison about the strategizing use case. Now maybe we have time for 2 more here. But this is the prompt comparison use case, and this is the text. And then I think I have 1 or 2 more here. Oh yeah, this is just the basic. Maybe I can just briefly show this off, but this is the basic math use case. Simulating the outcome of 10,000 coin flips inside of 4.0, and then doing the same thing inside of 01. Obviously here, this is where 01 Preview actually shines. This is a case like every time it comes to maths, you want to go with Preview. It just works better than Mini. And as you can see, this struggles. It comes up with a simple table, and then it comes up with a methodology, and then it just says that it simulates it and gives you some sort of conclusion. You can look at the code it ran. So it used code interpreters, so unfair advantage here, right? It got to run some code. But what did it use? A Panda data frame, and then gives you this. So it did the calculation inside of code interpreter, which is the best. And then here it just went ahead and it mapped it out. It simulated the coin flips and analyzed the flips and figured it all out. So you can see a whole lot more steps here. Expected value calculations, and other calculations that I'm not quite, that I don't have understanding of here. And okay, so statistical significance right here. Okay, this seems, well, certainly when it comes to learning, I would prefer this every time rather than just giving me the example. Okay, and then the conclusion is kind of the same. It's gonna be 50% of the time, but the approach is a very different one, right? This fires up a tool, and that's kind of its saving grace. If I were to go ahead here, and if I were to disable the tooling, which I have the small interface, we're gonna go here, and we're gonna disable the tooling, code interpreter like so, and rerun this like so. It should be a night and day type of situation. Now it doesn't have code interpreter to fall back on, so it's gonna have to do its thing. By the way, they adjusted 4.0. There's just no debate to include a bit more step-by-step reasoning. You know, a year ago it would have just given you an answer here, and it would have been terribly wrong. Now it actually makes some assumptions and gets you results. So that's nice to see, but nevertheless, I think it's just, let's see what this comes up with. But this is just such an elaborate and amazing answer here that you couldn't ask for much more. But look at that. Let's go with a hypothesis. They definitely infused some of the O1 learnings and chain of thought learnings into original 4.0. There's no doubt. Like even a few months ago, the 4.0 did not do this on release. But yeah, there you go. Although the differences between heads and tails is small, a difference of 80 flips in 10,000 trials is small, but it points towards potential bias. Yeah, so it couldn't even test it properly. It even says, hey, this is limited. I would like to test it more rigorously, but I couldn't. There's a difference of 80 flips, which is small, and there might be a bias there. But as you can see, this is just the better result here, clearly. It gives you the expected number here. But yeah, as you can see, just by this response, twice the length, more detailed, superior in these use cases, although this did get a whole lot better. Okay, one last one to round it out here, okay? We're around the 1 hour mark. I want to show you one last one, which is, this was the text editing, which was prompt generation. This was custom instruction generation. Just a quick note on this. You know, in the community, in the advanced prompt engineering learning path, we teach custom instruction creation, like how to create custom instructions for yourself, right? And it kind of follows this template. Interesting thing, like O1 worked super well with our Giga prompt here that we provide in the community only. It worked super well with it. But O1 kind of, again, it formed its original thoughts about how to do it, and it wrote it more like an essay, more like a paragraph, more like an email introduction, rather than following the template. And it's funny how consistent it is. Look at that. This is 4.0. All of the generations follow the template. Look at that. Language preferences, colon, and then the language preferences. Every time it follows the template. You see that? Over here. No matter how often I rerun that. We gave it a strict template to follow. It does it in 4.0. 0.1, no matter how many times you run it, it always just writes this little essay because it figures it's a better approach. And it might be even a better approach because then you save context length and could put even more stuff in there. Just again, sort of an example of how O1 handles things differently. And then one final example would be the prompt generation. I have to briefly locate this for you, but I ran our prompt generator through this, and the results were quite interesting. And that sort of, a lot of windows here. Yeah, there you go. This is the O1 result. This is the 4.0 results. There it is. Okay, so. This is the final comparison, ladies and gentlemen. Prompt generator, AI Advantage prompt generator, as you know it from our advanced prompt engineering lectures in the community, or as you know it from the business blueprint product we have. There's a total of over 1,000 different professions. Each one of them comes with a GPT preset, but also 30 prompts, but also the generator that creates these prompts. Now, this is the prompt generator. I have to briefly check here. It ends with the custom instructions here. Social media brand manager. That was it. The social media manager. That's the preset here. And I entered the prompt into both 4.0 and O1 preview here. Now, here's the thing. There was so much variability across the generation in O1 preview that I was surprised. First of all, it thought for 30 seconds, which is like, wow, that's a long time. The other time, if I go to the other generations here, I think it did even more. This was O1 mini. This one did 40 seconds. And look what it did here on the first shot. And I want to end on this. It formed its own idea of how to generate prompts. Wait, I'm scrolling a lot. I apologize for that. We're going to go to one concrete prompt and I'm going to end on this, okay? classic marketing prompt, creating a content calendar, right? So let's look for that. Content calendar, there you go. It was prompt number 10 in this case. It's sort of random. So I bet we're going to have it here too. Yes. Create content calendar. So our generator is set up to generate prompts like this. Easily editable with space for variables. Everything in a square, a bracket is a variable. It respects that here. That's good. But then look at what O1 did here. It came up with its own idea of how to prompt. It came up with this approach of like, all right, let's give it the prompt, but then also let's specify the steps that we need to take to successfully complete this prompt, because it probably somewhere in the fine tuning or somewhere in the model training, they just set the whole thing up to take multiple steps before it gets to a result. So it reflects that in our prompt generator. And that's why I thought this was an interesting point to end on, because it reflects this approach of taking multiple steps before doing something in activities that have nothing to do with reasoning, right? This is sort of like we're creating prompts to solve different work-related problems, but it reflects kind of that core capability of the model and that core programming, let's say, onto the prompts. And which one of these is better? Well, I'll leave this up for you to decide, but I think it's just an interesting note that all the prompt generators that we gave you, you can run these through O1 Preview and get some interesting and unexpected results. All of a sudden, you're going to be creating a content calendar in 4 steps, right? You're going to be listing key dates. You're going to be assigning content themes. You're going to be including post times optimized for the audience peaks. And you're going to be ensuring variety and balance across content types. Whereas here, well, there's no real talk about optimized posting times. Variety and balance, we do have, I think, right? Incorporating trending topics, special events. Well, not really. There's balance, but there's not variety. So this is more detailed. Now, is this better? I don't know. I would have to test this. I would need to go in. I would run this prompt through, again, 4.0, Sonnet, for probably O1 Mini. Those would be the 3 that I will be testing and comparing, seeing which result I like best. But I just wanted to show you that it just takes a completely different approach to solving problems than 4.0 did. And when you're in one of these, and when you encounter one of these use cases, when you're editing text, try out Mini. You'll be surprised by how good it is. When you're translating, especially tricky phrases, try out O1. Storytelling, same thing. Strategic planning, business planning, problem solving, optimizing SOPs, reviewing code. All of these are cases where I found it to be superior. And I hope this was helpful. That's all we got for today. Thank you.